So, welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. The next episode is with the amazing Chris Tibbetts. There is a trigger warning with this episode. It contains things about eating disorders and domestic abuse, but it's definitely one to watch. You'll be absolutely inspired, and his weight loss journey and how he's managed to change his mindset is absolutely incredible. So, enjoy.
Right, let's get started. And welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds, where I get the opportunity to interview people that inspire me, because this is a purely selfish podcast. And today I've got the honour of interviewing Chris Tibbetts, emotional eating coach, who's transforming people's lives. So welcome, my lovely. How are you?
I am really good, thank you. Very good. And I'm excited to be on your podcast today.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. So I've known you for a while, and I've met some of the people that you are transforming as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where did this all start for you? Because I know you're very passionate about what you do. And normally when people are passionate like you, they've got a huge why. So tell me where it started for you.
Wow. We could go all the way back to the beginning, but we'll do that in a bit. The reason I do now is it was about 4 years ago, lockdown. I was in a corporate job, got myself bit bored in my corporate job. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, and I have lost an insignificant amount of weight over time. I used to be 37 stone.
Wow.
Then I got myself down to 15 and a half stone, and another eating disorder. And I've struggled with eating disorders all my life. I traded one eating disorder for another one, unfortunately. After I then found my recovery, I then left my corporate job, and I was like going, I'm going to become a management consultant because that pays really well. And I was talking one day, and Alex Myers, who I was working with at the time, I know you've got him coming on your podcast, I believe.
I have.
I was talking to a group of guys, the Better Men, and he just said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to share your story." So I went, oh, "Okay, then," because and I sent him the slides across, and at this point, this is the crazy thing. I thought I'd only lost like 100 kilos. But actually, my heaviest to lightest, I've lost 120 kilos. And he goes, "You sent a typo." He says, "You said you were 100 kilos." And I went, "Yeah, it should actually be 120, but I think that's a bit embarrassing." And he went, "No, 100 kilos." I went, "Yeah, that's how much I lost." He went, "Wow." And I was talking to the Better Man, and I was like, having these people relate to me, and I share my story about my struggle with eating, my binge eating, the struggles I had through self-confidence, through abusive relationships, through sort of abandonment as a child, all these sort of things that all played a part. And I had what can only be described as an epiphany. I was hit with I really need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to help people because I didn't have the help, and I've been very fortunate that I could spend, I've spent hundreds, well, last tally, I've spent about £140,000 on my own recovery and then learning and educating and everything else since. And I was very fortunate. I think not everyone else is that fortunate to be able to do that. I thought I need to help people. I need to get out there and spread my message, share what I know, because I've been abused by the fitness industry. I've been abused by the health and wellness industry. Other people fleece me, take my money. I've been following every 6 week shared, 12 weeks shared. I'm 52, so I'm old enough to remember Rosemary Connolly. I've gone, I've seen all of the fads that have gone from, in my day, it was called Atkins. Now it's called keto. And I've seen them all. I've seen the cycle we've gone through from low fat to high fat to low carb to high carb to whatever. Paleo, carnivore, and the problem is the health and fitness industry is a multi-billion-pound industry that's designed on you failing.
Yeah.
And in the process, it wrecks with your head, and ruins more people's lives than it helps. In my
That's
humble
powerful.
but
Yeah.
honest opinion.
The amount of people that I've interviewed so far, and they've said they purely doing what they're doing because they don't want other people to feel how they felt. And I believe that's the most powerful mission that somebody can be on. And I think I completely agree with you with the diet world and the fitness industry. Like, it misses out people that are really struggling. And even though I love the NHS and praise the NHS all the time for everything they've done with Ben, I still don't think they're handling eating disorders and people that are overweight in the right way, because handing somebody a leaflet isn't going to do anything, because we all know that eating healthily and moving means we're healthier. But you need to get past that, don't you? Because it's a mindset problem as well.
Yeah.
So have you
telling somebody? Sorry.
Go on.
I was saying, telling somebody to eat less and move more is fantastic, but it's not what they're eating. It's not the eating that's the eating's causing the problem, but it's not the eating, because again, I know from your experience, it's never the food, right?
Yeah.
It's the feeling of the food. It's like that, oh, fantastic chemical, that dopamine,
Yeah.
I'm never worrying about the food I'm eating. It's the feeling I've got. I am chasing that fix. So Wegovy, Ozempic, or not Ozempic, but Wegovy, any of these semaglutide drugs, they're not going to work for me, because I don't need to be taught. I don't eat when I'm hungry. I eat because I'm chasing something. So it's never going to work. And this is the thing people seem to forget. They're always chasing something, and they're chasing this quick fix. They're chasing the easy answer. And it's what I coach is simple, but it's not easy. Because if it was easy, we'd do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know about you, but I often talk to people about the modern world. Like, the brain loves easy because it needs to be efficient. And I think, everything is food-wise, everything is so easily to get your hands on now that you can just walk into a supermarket and buy a load of crap because it is that easy. Yeah. And I often think, where weight's concerned, like the government really need to rethink that, because we have got a problem. Obesity is rising along with mental health as well, which is often, that, like you say, it's the link between emotional eating. It is like a stress get out. But do you think that, in my opinion, the government need to be shouting about this now, about people's health?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they need to. I know from my own personal experience that, when I went to go and see the GP at 37 stone. This is a really funny story. When I went to go and see the GP, I'd come back from Dubai and I wasn't feeling very good, and I was coming up to 45. I was going to have a health check. I went to see the doctor, and he said, he sort of like looked at me, and I knew him quite well. He said, looked at me and says, "You're looking well, Tibbsy." And I says, "Is that euphemism for you put a bit of weight on?" And I said, "Oh, explain how I wasn't feeling well. I've been on holiday. I've been on a business trip to Dubai, and I had struggled with sort of the heat, and I genuinely wasn't feeling 100%. So I would go and get a health check, and he did all these tests, jumped on the scales, broke the scales in the doctor's surgery, which was good. So I had to go off to the infirmary, and there they had a thing you sit on and got weighed and had all my tests done. And when I came to see him, he sort of like said, "Look, your markers are just, he says, you're a walking miracle that you haven't got diabetes yet. You haven't got, you got high cholesterol. It's not too bad. All of your markers, you should be, for your size, you should be, in a bad place." He says, "But you're almost there." He said, "But the one thing that was worrying was my blood oxygen levels." I came back and he told me about this. He said, "Look, you've really got to make change, because, if you don't," the first conversation we had is, "If you don't make change, you've got about 10 years. I said, 10 years to me is like, it's a long way away." Came back the second time. He says, you don't make changes, you're not going to see your 40th birthday. And I'm thinking, so I've got 6 months to live. He says, well, you could potentially die in your sleep at any point because your blood oxygen levels when you're sleeping are struggling. He says, it's just, you really need to make drastic change. The best he could offer me was a dietitian.
Right.
Right. And I was like, okay, that's great. What are you going to do? They're going to give me a meal plan, tell me what to eat. I said, I know how to lose weight, doc. He said, well, you need to lose weight. So I had a tried and trusted formula of weight loss, which was cornflakes and tuna fish and mashed potato. Right. And that's, I just basically like cornflakes and have tuna fish and mashed potato. 2 meals a day, that was all I have. I'd drop weight. But that wasn't ever helping me. And he never asked the question of why are you doing this? Why is this happening? Why are you unhappy? Why are you doing it? If I walked in with an alcohol problem, they would have, all right, we'll send to AA, we'll send this, here's a drug, here's this. But for me, he's just going, he's a friend, he's a good friend of mine. Anyway, he goes, you're just a greedy bastard. This was a GP, by the way.
Oh my God.
He says, you just like your food, don't you? I says, you're just eating too much. You need to stop eating so much. I'm like, okay. But that didn't solve the problems. It didn't even address his answer was go and see a dietitian, lose some weight. Not, we think you have an eating disorder. I think no GPs, very rarely, they see somebody overweight, right? And they never discuss eating. Overweight people, they never discuss eating disorders with. The only way they'll treat eating disorders primarily is anorexic. So you've got to be starving yourself to death.
Yeah.
It is now impossible to get any sort of inpatient treatment for binge eating disorder unless you are physically sort of like purging and you're wrecking your stomach, lining your stomach and all those sort of things, or you're anorexic and you're starving yourself there because haven't got the resources to help, and they haven't, but they'll quite happily pump, put you onto Wegovy at £200 a month, but it doesn't fix your brain.
No,
and it's a lifetime commitment.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm so glad that you mentioned about drugs and alcohol, because there is, even though people say there's not a lot of help out there, if you compare it to like emotional eating, there's so much more help for alcohol and drugs. And I often say to people, I'm not saying that drugs and alcohol are easy to give up by any means, right? But we need food to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a completely different technique that needs to be used with people that are overeating for stress than that is for drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So what was the first kind of step for changing your mindset? So did the diet start first, or did the change in mindset start first?
So obviously, like I said, I've yo-yoed in weight all my life, so I'm pretty good. Yeah, in fact, I am world class at losing weight, absolutely world class at it. But the problem is, I was actually world class at eating as well. So I could lose the weight. So I did lose the weight. But here's the thing: at that moment in time in my life, I was in probably the worst toxic relationship that I could be in. My marriage, was awful. It was, a challenging relationship. Luckily my kids are all grown up now, but, and I've told my own, but, my wife was abusive, right? I'm not frightened. I'm a man. I'm not frightened. My wife used to hit me. She used to abuse me. She used to belittle me. I used to come in from work. I used to work away, get home on a Thursday night. And by the time I came home on a Thursday night, she'd already be out getting drunk.
Right.
And that was my life. She'd come in at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And she would have been with other men.
So how old was you at that point?
I was 39. It was just coming up to my 40th birthday. So I realized that I needed to make change. But of course, I was in that situation where I was sort of like challenged. My children were all at home. They saw the relationship. I was living with my brother, and we were looking after my disabled brother at the time, my mother, who was on early stage Alzheimer's. I was the sole provider. I had a lot of pressure running my business, and there was a lot sitting on me. So I couldn't, I thought I can't just give it all up. But I realized that I had to, and I had a breakthrough. I had to go and work in London. I had to stay in London, and I created this space, and that's what I needed was space. I
Yeah.
needed space to go, right, okay, I need to take care of myself, which I started doing. I was too big to go to gym, right? But I walked everywhere. So I lived in London. I lived in Borough, and I walked in the city, lived in the city. So I used to walk a couple of miles every day, right?
Yeah.
Easily. And of course, when you're as big as I was, weight starts dropping off you quite easily because one, you're not eating this volume of food you're eating, and I was doing a lot of movement, maybe not a gym. So that helped me do that, and having that space, realizing I thought I'm getting fitter, I'm getting healthier, and I then saw how toxic my relationship was, and I realized that at some point I'm gonna die if I
Mm-hmm.
don't make a decision. If I stay in this relationship, I'm allegedly staying for my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I'm not going to be around.
Yeah.
you know, and going back, and then I saw the damage. My wife at the time, she was trying to derail my progress because she'd like bring food in, and she'd be like, all sorts of things to sort of. She didn't like what was happening because I was changing,
Yeah.
I was getting fitter, helping. So I then realized that actually, I've got this job in London, I've got a place in London, I've got somewhere to. It gave me the confidence to leave, and I thought, right, I'm gonna have to leave. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to, for me to survive, I've got to get out of this relationship because that relationship was going to kill me
Yeah.
because
Thank God
I
you
could
did.
see
Thank
the
God
change.
you did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So,
think that was that starting point, was taking control of things for myself. And it's the
and
first
that
time I'd
was,
ever done it in about 20 years.
yeah, and that was a big decision and a scary decision as well, with
Yeah.
the
Oh,
children
it
there
was.
as well. So with the
Yeah.
mindset thing, how do you, so it was like eating when you were stressed.
Yeah,
So,
every time. No, I ate everything. I'd eat happy, stressed, you name the emotion. I was a compulsive eater.
right, so it was like any excuse going.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely get that. You find that in other like addictions as well. It's like
Yeah.
anything, anything goes. So, how do you take your first step into rewiring your brain to stop that? Because, like I say, food's a necessity. You can't
It
stick a
is.
Nicorette patch on to,
No.
So,
Trust
how do
me,
you even
treatment for
begin
food
to do
addiction is
that?
awful.
Yeah,
Amy, treatment for food addiction is awful because you have to literally and I got treated for food addiction. You strip everything out of your diet. You are literally eating carrot sticks and hummus as an example. That's it. And then you have to reintroduce foods into your diet to see if they trigger how they react and how you react. And it's awful, right? It's really difficult. There's one situation when I was seeing my daughter in Liverpool, and I felt like Colonel Sanders was trying to drag me into the KFC. Ronald
mm-hmm.
McDonald was chasing me down the street, and the bloody Burger King was, trying to drag me in. That's how it honestly felt. It felt like that sort of episode that I was being dragged, and I literally had to say goodbye to my daughter and run to the train station and almost lock myself in the toilet on the train because I felt totally out of control.
I was
That's
just
how it
about
felt.
to say, yeah, I was just about to say, because obviously you get withdrawal if you stop smoking or stop drinking, you get withdrawals. So is that the case with food as well? You get kind of withdrawals
Felt
from.
like it, yeah. That's exactly how it felt like. But what it
Right.
also felt like, because I was craving these types of foods, it was really weird. It's really hard to explain what it felt like. But again, it was just that sort of challenge of feeling that way. And when I felt that way, it's like, okay, I need to sort of like do something differently. And when you said about the rewiring your brain, I think the first thing I had to acknowledge, right, was um, I use a concept called the inner critic with my clients, right? And my inner critic is called Fred, okay? And I've named him Fred because it's like the film Drop Dead Fred, because I've traced my issues with food all the way back to being 9 years old. Okay, when I was 9 years old, my brother had a road accident, got paralyzed, and overnight my life changed. My parents had to focus on looking after my brother, and I went to go and stay in the care of some family friends because there's only my older siblings had jobs, and my youngest one my sister was 18, so she could look after herself. She couldn't look after me. So I went to stay with some family friends, and wonderful woman Barbara. She looked after me fantastically, but she was your typical 70s housewife. She wore a pinny house coat, and food was her answer to everything. So if you're happy, she'd bake something. If you're sad, she'd bake something. She was like Mr. Ben. If anyone old enough to remember Mr. Ben, the guy turned up, right, and just appeared, right, and had an answer. This Barbara would turn up out of nowhere and go, "Here's a hot chocolate. You're feeling sad. Here's some cake I baked. Here's food." But also, she had all of the things of that era of clear your plate. Always had a pudding. Starving kids in Africa, all that sort of stuff that have been layered on us from that sort of age. So I could just trace back to that being the start. And then as I went back to live with my parents, they were busy looking after brother. So I found comfort and solace in the bakery. The woman in the bakery loved me. She's lovely. She's friendly. She gave me connection. She gave me love through food. The woman in the chip shop, the sweet shop. That's how I connected with people. And it was all around food. And when I was growing up, it's okay because I've always been tall. At 12, I think I was like 5'11". So I've always been active. So at that age, it doesn't matter. You can eat whatever you like, can't you? Because you're growing, you're active, and it didn't matter. But then obviously, when adult life comes, you still carry those behaviors. You add in drinking. I'd struggled with all of this eating. So I knew that when I looked at my inner critic, Fred was there. And when I was a kid, it was great. That's what I needed. That's what I used to survive. But in adult life, that person, that voice in the head going, "You deserve it. It's okay. Do it. It's all right. It's only food. Food's not going to hurt you. Don't worry about what anyone thinks. It doesn't matter. You can always start again tomorrow. And that's that voice in my head. And I had to realize that at one point I thought it was me, and I said, no, it's not me. Conscious Chris wants to be fit, healthy. The inner critic is doing his job of wanting to protect me, and like you said, the brain's really good at protecting us. It's pushing it, it's pushing us away from things, isn't it? It's pushing us away from danger and towards sort of pleasure. And it's like, but when you're wired in that way, it was really difficult for me because it's like I didn't have the on-off switch. So for me, there was no off switch. I'd just eat and eat and eat, and had no qualms. And if you think about it in this modern day, our brains are amazing, but they are still working off a 35,000-year-old operating system that says, if I'm hungry, I need to have as many calories as I can. Now, when we were being chased by saber-toothed tigers, it didn't matter because you were basically eating plants, berries, and meat that you killed.
Yeah.
However, now with manufactured highly calorific foods, you can eat 3,000 calories in a blink of an eye and not even notice it.
Yeah. And I often scream about this the modern world is not built for our brains in a healthy way. But it's interesting when you said that you was able to link it back to growing up, because obviously I've interviewed Chris Sheehan, and we're very much like, we learn how to deal with stress from the adults around us when we're growing up. So you have to be really careful. But now you've said it, I can remember my grandma being the same. If ever we was, stressed or upset, it would always be something that she'd baked. Like if we'd gone round, it was very much as soon as you walked through the door, it was here, have this. So I can absolutely see why people have grown up thinking, like, okay, I'm stressed, let's grab something. So for your big why, do you sit there and let people work out where it started? Because I think people do kind of need to know, how the hell has this happened, to be able to fix it. So is that where you start with people?
So I see my role very much. I am a firefighter, right? My role is to put out your emotional eating fire, right? I do not care, and I say it's a really nice way, I do care, but I do not care what match started that fire. Because while your house is burning down around you, does it matter? And to be honest, we may need to, once you put the fire out, work back and understand it. But then you've also the danger, and I hear a lot of people do this, And I've been through a lot of therapy, right? For different things, right? And I think therapy is a good thing in certain ways. But the danger with a lot of this is it gives us an excuse. And I've worked on myself on this. So I speak from personal experience, right? Is when I did therapy for my emotional eating, it made my emotional eating worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. When I worked on the fact of, okay, why did this happen? Why do I have these issues? It was okay because I'd separated it. Because I
Yeah.
think when you're trying to deal with the issue in hand and you keep going back, you're almost, I wouldn't say excusing the behavior, but it's like, how can you fix something when you'll keep going back to something that triggers you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think therapy has got its place for some. But I will say, it's every time you go backwards, you're just making that neural connection even stronger. And your brain doesn't know where you are. So as soon as you put yourself back in a shit situation, your brain thinks you're there.
Yeah.
So it's more likely to trigger
Correct.
you wanting to eat, because that's what
Correct.
it knows. So
yeah.
I get.
You said a great phrase on our training. You said a great phrase on our training is the brain doesn't distinct between reality and make believe.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't at all. When people say you are what you eat, yes, that's true, but you are what you think you are as well.
Yeah.
So it's like I think sometimes it's a dangerous thing to take people back, because if you're thinking, like I say, it's strengthening that neural connection, and people need to be thinking more of how do I want to be in the future and how do I get there?
Yeah.
And working with your brain that way. But I will say, after a long kind of spell of you using that as a stress relief, that's one hell of some rewiring that you have to do. So you must have been extremely disciplined to be able to do that. And then, did you say 4 years it took you to lose that amount of weight?
No. See, the crazy thing is I lost all that weight in about 19 months.
Wow. Wow. I never knew
Because
that.
here's the thing. Yeah. Here's the thing, Amy, is that when I am focused, right, and I'm if I could do tests, I am definitely on some form of some spectrum somewhere, right? Because when I put my mind to it, yeah, I am laser focused, and I am like, and I was doing that. But here's the thing, like I said, again, I traded binge eating disorder for bulimia. So, and this is why I'm passionate when people being mindful about their language around people losing weight, is that I got really slim, and I thought I wasn't slim, right? And I kept pushing myself, and it is not healthy to sit with your family and have a meal and have some ice cream, and then go in your garage at 10 o'clock at night and do an hour on the ski erg, punishing yourself because you had a bowl of ice cream with your family.
Yeah.
That is not healthy behavior. And I
Like,
traded,
a bit like OCD kind of behavior. Yeah.
The picture I've got of my healthiest or my slimmest, and we go, oh, you look amazing there. And I've stopped using it now because I'm, with people. I was in the depths of another eating disorder then. I was like punishing myself. I wasn't purging to make myself sick. I was punishing myself through exercise. I was like, I'd be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd be out walking the dogs. I'd be then in the gym. I'd have 2 sessions in the gym. I'd then be on the skier and then be out. I'd be hitting like 30,000 steps a day. Everyone's going, oh, that's amazing. I'm like going, it's not healthy.
I'm glad
wasn't
you've
healthy.
that out, because I think a lot of people think that you need to be sick to be bulimic, when that's not the case, is it?
No.
And that's kind of a vicious cycle. So that's one hell of a mindset to get out of, because that is literally torturing yourself. But at the same time, you're seen as a necessity because you don't want to get big again.
Yeah.
So that's is a dangerous mindset to be in, because you're running on fear.
Yeah. Well, I end up ripping both of my Achilles tendons, which sort of like put scupper to me exercising as much, which is probably the best thing I could ever do. Then started on recovery, and then realized that I need to not, don't get me wrong, fitness, health, mental, they're all very important, things to do. But like anything, you just got to be careful when something's bordering on obsession.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really dangerous to be bordering on obsession. If you are worrying about that, then that's again, it's just a flag that the same way. Like if I'm thinking, if first thing you do is think, oh, what game today? First thing, if you're waking up in the morning going, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to get to the gym today this time, and you start stressing yourself out over it, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like you've swung from one end to the other, and there's kind of no mid line in between. So both mindsets are dangerous and unhealthy.
Yeah.
So what of, because I often think you need to find a healthy coping mechanism. So what,
Yeah.
instead of food now, what do you use instead?
I cuddle my dogs.
Nice. I like that. I see one in the background asleep.
Yeah, that's Willow in the background. I cuddle my dogs. Right, my two. We got four dogs. My wife's got two last episodes, and I got two Labradoodles as well. They're not mine. We inherited them from our daughter because she wanted dogs, and then they grew up. And they're like my saviors. They listen to me rant. They will always drag me outside if I need to get some fresh air, and they're always loving and they listen. So that's probably I associate. And what I say to a lot of people, right, is I'm in recovery, right? I'm only ever one slip away from falling down that slope again.
Mm,
But what I am conscious now is about my life, about I think mental health is really difficult. And then I think 2 years ago, I had COVID, and then I got a blood clot in my lung. And I was like hours from death. I was lucky I got to the hospital and they support it and they treated it. But then that wrecked me. So I couldn't exercise. I've struggled with long COVID since. That's probably been a bigger struggle on my mental health than the eating disorders because, I put weight on. Oh my God, I put weight on. Well, of course I put weight on because I'm not actually, some days I could barely get out of bed and walk,
mm,
to other days when, I can take the dogs and we go up on the fells and we walk Scarfell and it's an amazing time. And some days I can barely get the length of my lane. And again, you've got to find different coping mechanisms, and again, I was
yeah,
thinking, you put weight on. It's like, oh God, you put weight on. It's like, actually, I don't mind that I have because I'm comfortable now knowing that when everything falls back into place, when my levels of fitness get back, I've got the necessary skills I need to make the changes, and there was an alternative, and I've now found that peace with food that I can actually enjoy food. So do I comfort eat? Hell yes. Every human being comfort eats. But you've
mm,
got to determine whether is food my only coping mechanism? No, it's not. I've got meditation, I've got journaling, I've got the dogs, I've got my wife, I've got lots of other things now where it's not just food. And I can be open and honest about them and I can share them and I can even say, like, I'm not having a good day today. How
yeah,
many people don't ever admit they're not having a good day?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I know your environment's a lot better now, thank God.
Hmm.
Like,
Yes.
and it's like you've took your why away
Yeah.
that's was fueling it like in
Hmm.
recent years.
Yeah.
And I know that you work with a huge group of people that are on the same journey as you, and they've obviously found you inspirational, like I have, because there's
Yeah.
I honestly believe if you want to change your life, instead of going to somebody who's just been through university that's probably never dealt with that problem personally themselves, it's
Hmm.
always better to
Yeah.
go to somebody who's walked the walk, talked the talk, and come
Hmm.
out the other side because you're just
Yeah.
purely talking in passion. The
Yeah.
people that come to you, are they in environments that aren't suiting them? Is environment the biggest trigger?
Undoubtedly. I think you can make a lot of changes when you're in the right environment. And I work with a lot of people who go, maybe their relationship's not the best. They've got multiple strains on them that they've got, whether it's their work, their family, parents, all that thing. And the thing I notice a lot about is that is the thing is they never prioritize themselves. So they could have the right environment, but they don't prioritize themselves. And by not, they're always bottom of that list.
Yeah.
And they go, well, I've got nothing left. And well, that's why you turn into food, because you've got all, you got all these emotional voids, right? And you need to fill them, and you've got nothing left, no energy left. So what's you using to do? You're going to eat. And nobody ever judges you on that. If you start, you go and, buy a load of wine and, take it to the checkout, they look at you and go, well, I'm the party. But you can buy a whole basket full of food and nobody's going to say a word to you, are they?
No, because it's just the norm.
Yeah, and you could go through a drive-through and nobody ever criticizes. Nobody's ever making a judgment on you.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever saying, "Oh, you sure you want to order that extra large value meal?" They go, "Do you want it large instead?" It's like, they never say, "Oh, do you want that? You sure you want those extra nuggets with that burger?" Do they? Nobody ever says that.
Do you often find as well people with emotional eating have little self-worth?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But they struggle completely. They can't see themselves, and it's, again, a lot of it's driven from their past, the childhood, the relationship, whatever they've been in, and again, they end up turning to food because food's the thing I think about food is it never lets you down, right? It's the bestest friend you can have because it always does what it says it's going to do, and probably because you're not tasting it, because it's the impact, our friend dopamine kicking back in. When you have that, open that wrapper of chocolate, when you have that cake, it's like when you have that rush, it's like it's always there. It never lets you down. It's great because in effect you're not really tasting it. You're looking for the effect it gives you. And when I say to clients, I say, look, slow down. Actually taste your food. And when it's not tasting, go, actually, I don't really like it. In my clients, have gone, I don't like chocolate. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like the taste. Because when you actually stop and you taste it, it has a different thing. And I think that whole feeling of, oh well, I want to have the, it's the, I'm wanting this feeling, not necessarily wanting that food.
Yeah.
And your brain's telling you, if you like, and I say it's a lot of clients about hunger, emotional hunger and physical hunger. If you are emotionally hungry, then that's when you're wanting something specific. So if you're physically hungry and I said, Amy, you go, I'm starving, hungry. I said, look, there's an apple. You go, okay, don't really want, but I'm hungry. I'll eat it because I'm hungry. But if you're emotionally hungry and I go, hey, here's an apple, you go, I don't want that. I want biscuits. I want a bar of chocolate.
You know what? I didn't look at it in that way, but yeah, it makes sense now you've said that.
Yeah. So that's an easy way to separate your hunger. And if you're wanting something specific, you could just have to then use tools to go, right, okay, I know I'm emotionally hungry. Why am I feeling this way? All right, I need to just do something differently. But I've caught it and I've acknowledged it. But if you're physically hungry, then guess what? You go and I say this to so many people. It's like, if you are actually hungry, then and you pass the apple test, and go and eat. Eat that apple. Because when we go, oh, we've got a white knuckle it, oh no, it's not time. It's like you're then creating a problem for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's such a thing I see so much. And again, coming back to our brain, when I see people, and I see people do this all the time, maybe they go, I'm going out tonight, so I'm not going to eat anything all day. What a stupid thing to do! Because what you're doing then is you're allowing the brain to kick in at about 4 or 5 o'clock, going, we're starving. We're going to starve, even though in modern world we're never going to starve. But your brain's going, survival, we're going to starve. Right, I need some high calorie food. So then you go and eat something that's going to be not nutritious but full of calories, which is then when you eat a couple of hours later, you eat your normal food, and then you all done gone, oh, I haven't lost any weight this week. Why not?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that binge you forget about, those calories you never count because they didn't exist, you put weight on. But because I haven't lost any weight because of that binge because I didn't eat properly.
It's interesting. Logic goes out the window, doesn't it? Like you just purely running on your amygdala just to rule the show, which is a dangerous.
People forget about this.
Yeah. It's no logical when. Yeah. It's incredible, really, and then you beat yourself up for it afterwards. So it's I get that people running on autopilot. So you run it's a big group of people. And it's men and women as well, because I often think as well that people miss men out when it comes to overeating and emotional eating, which
Yeah,
is so
you
wrong
do.
because
Yeah.
our brains are the same, we've got the same emotions, and we are very capable of running on the same coping mechanism. So when I came to do the guest training, it was really nice to see men in there because
Yeah.
I was like, thank God. Do you find it? Do you get more women coming to you than men? Are you finding it still kind of, is it an ego or pride thing with a man that they struggle to ask for help, in your
Yeah.
opinion?
In my humble but honest and accurate opinion, men are the worst clients.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
Their egos get in the way, right? Because
Mm,
they should just be able to do this. Give me a diet plan. Let me go to the gym. I'll diet my way out of this. How's that working for you so far?
yeah.
So, and men don't talk about it because,
Mm,
quite often, they all have had that struggle. They all have that humiliation. It's like, when you go, you're the big lad. Oh, you're the dust. God, the amount of clients I work with whose nickname was Dustbin.
wow,
And when
yeah.
you've got that, I know from my own personal experience, I had an expectation. I got barred from a steak restaurant because for 3 weekends on the trot I did their 72-ounce steak challenge.
Well, yeah.
Um, and did that 3 weekends and they banned me because I did it. And I had this reputation. It's like, oh, let's send it down to Tibbsy. Tibbsy will eat it. Well, let's take Tibbsy to all you can eat buffet. We'll make a killing. And then you start living up to that persona. You start living up to that thing, and you think, oh, what you can't say, I'm not going to eat that because you can't say, oh, I'm going to be healthy because you feel that that's not who you are. And for me, I built my fat suit up to protect myself. I would always make a joke about myself before anybody else. I would always run because then I thought if I'm controlling the dialogue, they're not going to say things that can hurt me because I'm going to say them about myself first, so they can't. It cuts it dead. Terrible
Yeah.
thing to do, terrible strategy. But for me, I thought it worked because it stopped people. I said things before they said them because then it stopped it being, if I said the joke first, it stopped with me. Whereas if somebody else
Yeah.
said it, they'd all chip in, and then it was always sold it, and then you just shrink, and it was horrible. And I think
That's quite common, isn't it, as well? It's like a
yeah,
self-defense mechanism,
yeah,
which is quite
absolutely
sad.
protect yourself.
Yeah, and would you say men are definitely worse at that than women? Like they'll jump in first to.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sad
Oh
that
yeah,
is.
absolutely. And I think yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
like
awful.
yeah, and I think what makes it worse as well is society accepts men being bigger.
Hmm.
Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's almost like an identity that they're losing as well, which is
yeah,
doubly hard because they're having to
yeah.
fight with that, which is just like really, really sad. Like I say, sometimes our society just puts people in blocks, which is wrong. And then when we try and move out the blocks, we feel like we're doing the wrong thing. But I always scream to people as well about the importance of a peer group that
Hmm.
is on
Yeah.
the same journey or a similar journey,
Hmm.
And so you do group coaching, is that right?
I do, yeah. So I do. Obviously, I've got my private one-to-one coaching, primarily men, to be fair, which is quite interesting.
Right.
Um, and then I've got my Food Freedom Mastery Academy where it has a group element to it. Obviously, all my private clients have access to it as well, so
Mm-hmm.
they can decide if they want to get involved in the calls. But yeah, so that, and I say the academy has men and women. I do separately have women's calls, so I'm doing a separate course for ladies only at the moment because again, they need to have a space where they can talk about their things. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's great that everyone can talk together because everyone sees a journey, but there's certain things. So I've got a menopause group at the moment that I'm running, and don't want men in that group. To be fair, I feel honoured that I could be in it, but I'm the coach, so I don't have a choice.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I want them to be able to discuss things safely there without worrying about a male opinion or not that the guys in my group would ever say anything that's wrong, but it's about giving up. But then again, I also do men only groups where men can talk about things because they do feel a bit they don't want to talk about how their wife or partner makes them feel because it can be about embarrassing. So again, it's about providing that space, so the whole group come together, which is fantastic, and we share, and they're very supportive in the school community, and they share everyone's success and their wins, and they talk about what's happening. And I think having that peer group is important, because when you're on this journey, you quite often feel alone. And for me, I credit Overeaters Anonymous for helping me at the beginning of my journey. The thing is, I actually fell out of favor with it because I didn't believe in abstinence-based. There are certain foods I'll abstain from, but I didn't believe in you got to cut all this out of your life. So I was going, I want to enjoy birthday cake. I want to enjoy pizza. I want to have burgers. But I don't want to feel that food's in control over me. And that's why I'm passionate about people finding their own food freedom, because if you feel you have no control over it, you feel that you're addicted, you feel, it's like, oh yeah, I can never eat sugar again because it's addictive. Well, perhaps you can.
Yeah.
You've got to find a way of doing it.
Your brain's automatically going to go into fear mode if you're going, oh, I can never have this again. It's a bit of FOMO kicking in there, and it's going to be, you're making it harder for yourself. You're definitely making it harder for yourself. So what have you got coming up for the rest of the year? Because I can see you're extremely busy. So what have you got new that's coming out? Where are you going? What are you doing?
Well, obviously, I've launched my new book last week, this month, which has been fantastic. So I've got to number 2. I'm an Amazon bestseller, but not a number 1 yet.
Oh, wow.
In treatment and addictions, to be fair, I was number 2 bestseller in treatment and addictions, behind Alan Carr Quit Smoking. Will you believe it?
Oh, anyway, wow! Mate, what an achievement that is.
So the book's come out. I've got another book coming out later on in the year. I've got my first ever client retreat in November, which is going to be awesome. We're away for sort of 3 days, in a fantastic location in Rydal Hall in Ambleside, which is going to be great. Which is my first ever retreat away. And so we've just got the one-to-one coaching happening. Probably a new group program later in the year, not quite sure yet, because I've got the academy, which is great, but I'm thinking about a 90-day program, but I don't know, it depends. So lots of exciting things, but a second book will come out later this year to go along my first book. So
fab. So I ask everybody on my podcast, I don't know whether you've noticed this, so I'm hoping you haven't, because otherwise you're prepared for it, but I'm not prepared. You're all right. I first used it on Davino on the very first podcast, because I know he shoots this question at everybody. So what I did is started the podcast and asked him this question straight away. Chris, tell me 3 good things about yourself.
3 good things about myself. I love dogs.
Fab.
I love good coffee.
Yeah.
I love a good cinnamon bun.
Oh, nice. Do you know what? Everybody struggled with that apart from you. Even Dorino struggled. So that's amazing. Right. So if people want to find you on social media, I will drop the links and the link to your book as well. But for anybody listening on Spotify, where can they find you?
Basically, at Emotional Eating Coach UK on Instagram. Probably there. And then from there, they can find me on Facebook. Or just search Chris Tibbetts, Tibbetts, please.
That's perfect. Well, thank you for today and taking the time out. You are a complete inspiration, and you've blown me away with the 19 months. I never knew it was 19 months. So anybody that's sat on the fence thinking that they can't do this, Chris is definitely your man. I've seen so many results that he's got. It's absolutely incredible. So thank you, my lovely. And
thank you, Amy. Been a pleasure.
And I will see you soon. Take care.
Absolutely. Bye.